opinions are our own. They're not given to us by any corporation. No tattoo on my back, I tell you. But yeah, it's a free, in every sense of the word. This is a free radio station. Now, before we go ahead and get into the meat of the show, and Dave has prepared some excellent news we're going to share with you, some very interesting developments. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here in Australia. For me, in beautiful Pemel Way, it's the Darug people, and for Dave,
it's the Darkinyum.
Thank you very much, Dave. And we would like to pay our respects to the elders, past, present, and future. More pertinent as this year wears on, there is an event, and we would like, in the spirit of things, not to overuse a term here, ask people to stay away from Uluru during the period of December this year, unless you're a native person. If you're a native person, then that's a whole different thing. But yeah, the people that are conducting certain rituals have asked uninitiated, and that's anyone who's not a native person, to please stay away from Uluru at this time. There's an event that you can Google it. You can look it up yourself. I don't want to give the show away, but I thought it would be good to mention it on air here. If you're planning to go down to Uluru in the December time frame, I urge you not to. Again, unless you're a native person initiated and introduced into adulthood. Dave, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, good.
Good to hear.
Yeah. I was up very late last night watching a live stream.
Past 10? You're past 10, right? Jeez.
Oh, 9:30.
Holy moly!
Oh, wow.
Not a spring chicken anymore.
That's going to wipe me out for days. And I'm kidding everyone, by the way. Look, follow us on Patreon as well. And we have also got some merch on Zazzle. But look, Meki, every day now, I think we're going up 700,000. We're nearly at the 1 million per day for confirmed cases of the current SARS-CoV-2 virus. Yep. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I spoke with a medical person while my daughter was getting her cast off her arm. She fractured her arm weeks ago, and look, no harm done. It's all good. But I was having a discussion with the person and trying to just explain some things that's out there in the wild about the virus itself, about the case fatality rate, which no one's talking about in the media at all, not even at all. There's no case fatality rate information out there. And look, granted, we normally talk about it after the virus is gone, but while it's active and we have confirmed cases, yeah, that's something. But look, one of the things, Mackie, that I try to ignore, but bring it up in conversation, I try to ignore it because it doesn't help the cause. And that's talking about the IFR, which is basically if you add in all of the suspected cases that aren't confirmed, then the case fatality rate drops. But I'm talking about a CFR, and that's very, very important that we just stay to what we know. And one of the things, Mackie, that came up, right? So we've got 1.5 million dead and rising that died with the virus that we know about, and there's 66.5 million cases confirmed. The projection at the moment is still so high it's not dropping. So there since the virus has been with us, there hasn't been a month where it's been in decline yet. So we're hoping that's obviously the whole world has its eyes on a point at which we can start to see the numbers decline. However, the vaccines have an extraordinary connection with the never decreasing case numbers, because when you're vaccinated, you still acquire the virus and you are still contagious. However, your symptoms are almost nil to none. So just as the asymptomatic people have got the virus currently and don't even know that they've got it, are contagious, yeah, but they have no serious side effects. Like any other, flu, you have a flu, the regular flu vaccine, and you go through an entire season without experiencing any, you don't even think you had the flu at all. But you might have experienced it, because this is what our bodies do, see, they fight things. Now, I don't think we're going to see the numbers decline even with the vaccine, because the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting it.
Right.
So until the entire planet has been infected with it at some point, and we're just living with it, because this is this whole admission, we had to admit to ourselves when we understood what the vaccines did, that this isn't going away.
Yep.
This is, Mackie, we talked about this back in January when this thing was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best avenue for trying to deal with it? Elimination? Yeah, it's the best you can do.
Mm.
But every time there's something, you get really panicky. So we're all on edge about whether they're going to close the borders again because, oh no, they found one. Or, but it was okay. It was just someone working in a hotel, but they were working at 2 hotels. And Melbourne said, that's really bad. Like Victoria, that's really bad. You shouldn't do that. And we've gone, well, because you were doing it and we weren't just seeing anything. We didn't make any rules. But now we've made some rules so that we can kind of nip that in the bud too. I think this is a learning experience, and everything, all our learnings, we need to apply them and make that really, really quick. This is the thing. When I've been looking into the vaccines and I'm hearing doctors talking about the vaccines, doctors, and there's MedCram is a great channel if you want to understand what the vaccines do. Is a doctor talking to other doctors, and you can just be a fly in the wall in this conversation. It's quite good. He's just doing it basically to camera, but he has an equivalent of a whiteboard, and he'll talk you through the details of how they work. And it's very, very educational. One thing that I've fallen into, Mackie, is this indemnity cycle. An indemnity that all the governments of the world, look, as far as the virus is concerned, an agreement between our governments and the manufacturers of the vaccine, which are being fast-tracked to deployment, as we know. They're all being fast-tracked, and which are also not undergoing the same rigorous trials and approval processes. In a reaction from the manufacturers, when questioned how safe the vaccines are, immediately they instigated legality or legal indemnity against the people's actions. So this is it. And what I'm finding is there are now news stories popping up everywhere. And this news story is the Sydney Morning Herald. It's a reasonably good paper. It used to be in print all the time, everywhere, and they've sort of trying to subscribe you across to a paid service. Nah, it's never going to happen. Vaccine suppliers given indemnity for inevitable side effects, writes Dana McCauley. And this is the thing. I mean, inevitable side effects? What kind of side effects are we looking at? The Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, the mRNA ones, they seem pretty safe to me, because it's basically doing what the virus does, but it's only the ACE2 receptor stalk that they've taken the mRNA from, so that we can detect when another virus, any coronavirus family of viruses, has come into our system. That's really cool.
It is.
However, go on. No,
just to be clear, what Dave is talking about means since these vaccines were rushed through significantly, I mean, this takes years and years to get through normally.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a tentative agreement. Well, maybe not so tentative now, really, but there seems to be an agreement that if any side effects were to occur, that the people that brought these vaccines, there are 3 of them now, these companies, that these people are not liable for any side effects. So let's say, your teeth fall out, or your hair turns...
causes gigantism.
Yeah, consume in moderation. What does that mean? Anything untowards happens to you, including up to death, of course, then the companies cannot be held responsible. Now, to be honest with you, that's a very sensible legal position for these companies to be in, because it was rushed through, because we are now at a point where everybody's clamoring for this vaccine. What vaccine? Give me a vaccine. Come on, how come there's no vaccine? But if we were as rigorous with this vaccine as we are with all the others, it wouldn't be until 2023 that a vaccine would be available after all the testing and legal and that.
That's right.
Except for Turkey. Turkey doesn't have any of that. Turkey doesn't. You're gonna take some? Take it. Take it. We just made something new. Here, you take it. Seriously, no. That's why the death rate in Turkey is so low.
Oh, well, go ahead. I'll wait for you.
Experiment with stuff. Not an experiment. I'll take this. Yeah. What is it? Oh, it's hydrochloric acid. Just see what happens. What? No, but so they were never really constrained.
The purple berries taste like burning.
Oh, ouchie. Yeah. So relatively speaking, I guess they are doing okay. I mean, right now, Jesus Christ, they've just got into there's a lot of people that got it in Turkey, 30,000 over the weekend. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But yeah, Dave, so that's really where we are. Keep going, my friend.
Yeah. So what I've stumbled upon is a bunch of doctors talking about this thing called immunogenic proteins. They're normally used in vaccines, and then they may cause what's known as pathogenic priming. Now, that doesn't sound like anything. It sounds good, right? However, when you look into it...
Priming's good.
Yeah, I love priming. And pathogenic priming is, I don't know, that's got to be
anything better? If there's, I don't know about it.
That's right. So, to be honest, when I looked into what that means, it's almost the same thing that I occurred with what's called riters disease. And that's similar to the problems that riters disease presents, where your body attacks itself. In my case, my cartilage was being eaten by my immune system. And that's a true thing that happened.
That's tasty cartilage.
Yeah, taste. After, because I was bitten by a tick, and it injected into me a little bit of its prior meal, the meal that it had before me. And my body started to fight it. There wasn't much of it, but it went on to hyper alert, and then decided, it's like the angry mob. The thing that they were after wasn't there, so they just started, pillaging and looting the town. That's from a viral sense. Now, look, this legal indemnity to me is a bit of a worry. Just to me, it's my personal opinion. Since the few places that use it are extreme adventure activities, like you might go, rock climbing or parachuting. That's another one. There's a whole bunch of them where you have a very high chance of injury or injury to others, and you've got to sign away your ability to sue anyone just to be able to walk on field.
Door concert.
That's a self-harm thing, Becky. So I had to say it too. I don't hate him, to be honest. But I think for me, he lost his relevancy. It is not something that you sign when you walk into a doctor's office or go about your daily lives. So this is such a big change, and I wanted to bring that out and quickly talk about it. Quickly, could be debated there. When I add up the total of confirmed infected and the possible asymptomatic untested people estimates and create an IFR, not a case fatality rate, which is what I kind of mentioned before, the virus percentage drops significantly. For example, the CFR for the confirmed cases right now is 3.4%, but add in the asymptomatic and it goes to less than 1%. So I had to mention that percentage for a reason. So I do have to say that the IFR can be truly determined, not be truly determined, unless every person is tested for antibodies after the virus has been eliminated. And this is what Meki talked about all the way back at the beginning of the year, about, normally all of this stuff is determined afterwards because we start doing some testing. But no one's going to bother doing testing to anyone who said, I just never felt sick. So we'll never actually quite know. So in my state of New South Wales, where we know there is a large asymptomatic group in Sydney's northwest by the examination of the sewerage, though no one seems to be having symptoms great enough to warrant being tested. Or they're just too quiet about it, or they their income, they're worried about that, they can't go to work, maybe the budget's a bit too tight. So I postulate that the effectiveness of the vaccine is less than the actual CFR. That exposure to a recent coronavirus is also sufficient to be asymptomatic. That, funnily enough, is the same as having the vaccine. Because they've proven that those people who have, and I think proof of this was found with blood tests that went back to 2016 where coronavirus antibodies were found in asymptomatic patients. That matched their account of having experienced the flu back then. I will not be the first in line for the vaccine, that's for sure, but I will have it eventually. So...
Look, but that's the thing. Look, the thing is this, but by the time it gets to people like us, we're not medical frontliners, we're not particularly frail. I don't think it'll be available for the general population like us folk until 2022. End of 2022 is my thing. 2 years from now is what I reckon. Mm-hmm. Having said that, of course, by the time it comes out, there will be a vaccine passport. They already started. The airlines independently are now mandating it. Forget governments.
Qantas said that, right? No jet, no fly, right?
Mm-hmm. That's it. Now, look, but where do you draw the line?
You don't. You just don't. What line?
That's where it gets interesting, right? So, because different countries have different vaccination standards. And different diseases to vaccinate against. Actually, that's not true. I've taken vaccinations against malaria because I travel there. But on a regular basis,
Rubella,
I don't get vaccinated for malaria.
Smallpox. What's the other one you have to get to? I had them all, Becky, when I was traveling when I was a kid.
There's hepatitis and all kinds of things.
Yeah. The one that leaves that big round scar on your arm.
Oh yeah, that's polio.
Polio?
That's polio vaccine. Yes, it is.
No.
Yep. Yes, it is. I got it too.
Oh, okay. So look,
it's either polio or smallpox.
I think it's the one that you needed back in the olden days to go to the Asian countries.
Yes.
And
maybe diphtheria.
No, I'll remember the name of it at some point in the next
century. If you do remember it, if it's not polio, then because I got all those when I was young.
Yeah. I got those too.
Yeah, of course, but. There'd be issues. There'd be issues of regulation, and arbitrary decisions. People just not being allowed on planes. We'll see a lot more of that. You're sneezing at a temperature. I think what we'll see a lot of. This is gonna. Okay, I'm calling it, Dave.
Place your hands in the yellow circles.
There's going to be. That's right. There's going to be a little cottage industry here, like a niche market. Whoever gets in there first will make gazillions.
Yeah.
Selling little oxygen supplies on planes, or little air supplies that you can just breathe your own air on a plane for 2 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is. But you bring it on board, and I reckon that there's a smart entrepreneur out there right now filling up his little bottles and selling them at a little kiosk at the airport. But I think that's going to be a thing, because you don't want to be breathing or rebreathing that air that everybody else has breathed already.
No. So one of my friends, Mackie, had a military contract, which is now public. He can sell his equipment publicly, and he developed the rebreather for the military.
There you go.
So that would be ideal. You could just keep breathing that for 20 hours or something.
Oh, 100%.
Awesome. Absolutely. There's a trip to England.
It's
yeah,
100%. And it's a thing now, right? That's my opinion, because people are paranoid, and it's better than a mask. I bring my own mask. I spit on your mask. I bring my own air.
You could do the. But I think the molecules are too small for a gas mask.
No, if it's hermetically sealed, if you actually breathe
like a World War II kind of gas mask, Mickey.
Yeah, like proper.
The big filter. Yeah.
If you have that, sweet bananas. It's nothing to... I can do whatever I like. I don't need you, silly man. I think that's what look, it's a funny world we're heading into, everybody. It's really very strange. And if you had told me that this is what it would look like in this time last year, well, yeah, sure. I was worried about bushfires at that point. To be honest with you, Dave, that was my worry. This time last year, bushfires.
I really thought they would have been a thing
I know, right?
for 2020. But yeah, not so much.
Yep.
You'd think, right? Yeah. So, Mackie, the reason why I wasn't sleeping very much last night was this next story, and there's a few points here, and I think if you're willing, Mackie, we can talk about one at a time, one point at a time here. And but this is a new revelation in the fraud for the voting fraud in the US that has come to light last night, which was 4 security camera footage of from Georgia in the counting area, the counting booths, that was presented to a panel, streamed live on YouTube during that subcommittee, and it was titled, the video, if you're looking for it, is "Republicans Tender New CCTV Footage to Georgia Senate Judiciary Subcommittee." And I do ask that you watch that in full, because these comments, there's a lot of people who are talking about the video that, get 500,000 views already just talking about this video, because everyone really wants to know. I think you just go to the core and you have a look at that and, stay there, because things that I noted about the video, which is basically, just be honest, there's a panel. Oh, hang on, I'm just going to close that door because I get a lot of feed from the other room. There we go. It's almost like the working from home experience. But kids go to school these days. So there was a panel of a bunch of people, and there was a who is an attorney but doing volunteer work to assist this cause, and spoke to this video, which they'd only had for an hour beforehand. As soon as it came, they looked through it, they skipped through it, found some points of note, and then spoke to that video in front of the panel and were asked questions. So the highlights here, and I think we can take them one by one. The braided hair lady supervisor of the scanning staff ordered the media, this is the main point, and it all stems around this lady, ordered the media and the observers away, stating that at 10 o'clock in the evening, counting is stopped, see you in the morning. Which I figured, that's pretty reasonable. But then, Mackie, what's the next line?
Counting is stopped. All observers and the media leave from the roped off area where they couldn't ever see anything, as they looked to be at least 30 yards from the tabulators. Once the observers media left, the same braided hair lady confirmed they were now alone, and then had a very different batch of ballots counted. The new ballots were brought out, not from the same place all the others, but from beneath the table and hidden from view by a tablecloth. Now, before we go on with this, right, enough, I actually watched the video.
Yeah.
And we will share the rest with you. I have to ask, the devil's advocate question, is this video real? That's the question I have, right? And if it is real, why are we only seeing it now?
Because no one realized it was there until the team did a FOIA request after noticing the camera placements, the security cameras, and that they'd been used on several occasions in the past for people claiming they tripped over something or hurt themselves during other rented space events at this location. And that question actually came up. How did you get the footage? Were these cameras just simply placed there for this event, or what, right? Because I think the angle that the person in making the inquiry was to see the legitimacy of the use of this footage, rather than if it was privately owned or there only for the voting itself. Maybe it was council owned. They didn't know, but no, it was part of the building. So it was.
No. But my question remains: is the footage real, right?
Oh, the footage is indeed what the footage says it is.
How do we know?
Because of the people involved have determined that this is it.
Well, I saw it first in the Epoch Times, so I'm a bit skeptical of the Epoch Times. That's all.
Well, the video that I've shared is from Sky News Australia.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, and the original stream came from the committee itself, streaming the entire hearing. And all of the people in there were who they said they were, right? So it's a good question that is it real? But for all intents and purposes, all of those people that were doing the counting have been identified and are in this, and the timestamps are correct, and the activities are correct, and that the people that, the media people who are the friendlies in it, they've confirmed that this is also correct. So, well, it's still up to be contended in a court, and the hearing is only the beginning. So you're right to ask the question. So the table in question, the one that's circled in red if you're watching this on YouTube, this was brought in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the full length video, which is 14 hours worth of video, has not yet identified the time at which these suitcases of ballots were placed beneath the table, to then be extracted only when everyone had left. And so, so the same braided hair lady was the one who'd actioned these staff to continue between 10 and 1 o'clock in the morning for the 3 tabulating machines. And she supervised them continuously until 1 o'clock in the morning. So the affidavit that spoke of this person and the activities was not admitted as evidence because it was just an affidavit. But and now that's been totally verified by the footage. And the person who supplied the affidavit is also visible leaving the room at that point when they said they did. So, and the timestamps all fitted. So I noted something, Meki, about the people on the panel. A person on the panel who seemed determined to shut this down stated twice that I noted in 2 separate periods of time during the entire hearing, but a number of times within each of those, that all of this had been debunked already. But she, to me, didn't seem impartial. She seemed, the same person also seemed to display frustration at the acceptance of this new information. Like the person was, emotionally connected to this outcome already, where everyone else seemed completely impartial. I really respected the other people on the panel and their actions. The others were professional. The others were professional and questioned the activities as much as was practical or within their knowledge. I think that some of them struggled a little bit with some of the technical detail with the machines. But I'm really glad that this video came to light because the fight for truth, Meki, is the most important part of this. I think just proving that there was something definitely going on, because the person that I can see, I'll talk about the objector. So the objector on the panel also seemed to know much more about the course of action that this new evidence would be pursuing after it was confirmed that this was all real, and that this this is the big T, Trumpy, would be expecting to appoint a person on the collegiate group to make the votes for the college vote. However, the objector stated that Georgia did not have that legislation.
Okay.
So sort of, it's for nothing. There was the opinion. Doesn't matter what you say about in Georgia, we don't have it, so don't worry about it. Forget it. It's all been debunked, says the person. And I was quite disappointed to hear that. Lastly, the question was raised about the origin of the video, and it was from the building, and I said it wasn't sinister, maybe a thing that for maybe in the future, all of the voting booths or voting counting will have to have video and will have to be examined by a third party.
I think we're very well.
I think we're gone past
in that world right now. There's no way we cannot do that. It's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah. So my only question, I think, is that I could come up with here that I could word properly would be, can the emotional connection of the DNC and the owned official, those volunteers, the US mail staff, judges, all be guilty of knowingly committing fraud?
Well, that's the question. I mean, because you're quite right. It is not a person in a darkened room doing this. If it is done, it has to be done at scale. Otherwise, what's the point? Let's not do it, right? But if that's the case, if it's done at scale, and we're talking about not 10,000 votes, we're talking about hundreds of thousands or even millions of votes, right? Then we have a much bigger problem as to whether or not Biden or Trump are president in the States. The States, they have to throw out whatever they've been doing, and they have to start from scratch. And heads have to roll, and people have to be fired, and people have to have to go to jail for this, if it is a thing, and not just onesies or twosies, thousands of people will have to go to jail. Okay, that's the kicker here, right? Thousands of people will have to go to jail if it's true. Now, look, does it make a difference? Maybe this particular thing doesn't make a difference. But you said something interesting earlier. You said the truth. It's good to. I think that ship sailed a long time ago. The truth is the absolute truth is no longer in existence, and you know, if you go back to the
I nearly spat milk out my nose.
I know. But the two Bush elections that happened, then the election, Barack Obama's election. Okay, let's take a step back here. First of all, none of this matters, to be very clear, right? If you look at the hypothesis, you understand that none of this matters. It does matter, though, from an individual's perspective as to who you are and how your own spiritual progress is coming along. That's where it matters, right? Everything else doesn't really matter. And because this soup has been oversalted, this has been gamed against us for tens of thousands of years. We have no chance in this game unless we stand together. And it's being frustrated at every angle. Because well-meaning people on the left, on the right, in the middle, whatever political ilk you think you are, we're all being pitted against each other for seemingly important contests. These are all red herrings. They don't matter. None of the shit matters. You have to. No, it doesn't. You have to.
Yeah,
you have to,
I'm agreeing with you.
You have to see through it. But it's a news cycle. Oh, it's an election fraud in the States. Honestly, whether or not Biden or Trump, and I don't like either of them. And again, I asked my American friends, you have 300 million people in your country. Those are the two best people you can get up with? Seriously? I don't like either of them. If I had a choice, I wouldn't let anyone near any government or nuclear strike codes. This wouldn't happen, But we are where we are. But ask yourself, how is it that these people in the system that you have were allowed to be now contesting the presidency? Why these two? Why these two? Kerry and Bush. Remember Kerry?
That's right.
They both belonged to the same secret society. Oh, that's a secret, I guess. And they both were at Yale, right? And you know what secret society I'm referring to. But they were both members of that. So you got 300 million people, and at any given time, that secret society has 100 members. Living members, right? At any given time, because there's not that many. It's got to do with skeletons, guys. But really, that doesn't raise your hackles? Two people that belong to the same secret organization that are sworn to secrecy, never talk about it, ever, and nobody ever does, right, by the way, they're now contesting the presidency. Now we've got Biden and Trump contesting the presidency. This is the presidency that will, change the face of America. No, it won't. No, it won't. Okay, the truth, as it stands, is that we've been in a game that has been stacked against us for a very long time, and all of these distractions, these completely irrelevant things, are there to divide us even further. I mean, they would love nothing better. When I say they, I hope you know who I'm talking about. They would love nothing better than see us kill each other in the street. Oh, sweet. Not all of us, because they still need people to clean toilets and cook lunch. But most of us, Sorry, that's what I think, Dave. That's just where we are.
I'm glad you don't hold back.
I was mincing my words.
Yeah, no more of that. We won't have, we don't like that. So, yeah, that's crazy. I just saying that is. I mean, it's completely right. When you said truth left the station, right? The pursuit of truth. I say I because I went to school in America, I've got quite a soft spot for, for American law and and what it means as a democracy and staring down the threat of the next rising nation which isn't a democracy. Just saying. And would America really want to lose to China? Just saying. All right. Lose the top role, even though that's probably already a done thing. And all of this infighting and complication is not doing anyone any favors if they want to stay in that role. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So I find these matters only muddying the waters, and if there can't be any quick decision and trust, this is the big thing. If there's no trust in the system, I think we've got bigger problems.
Oh yeah, much bigger.
It's not going to go well, and I do completely hope that we all like the outcome that we've drawn for ourselves.
It's going to end in tears. All of this is going to end in tears, right? No matter which way we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Biden, Trump. I understand Trump's policy of American isolationism. He's not the first. Woodrow Wilson, President Monroe,
Mm-hmm.
President Wilson, they all did the same. It's not new, and it's a fairly sensible thing to do as well. I mean, who wants to be global cop? It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to have all these soldiers and fleets and whatever around. But America sees itself, of course, as the global entity, right? And much to the frustration of China, who also wants to move into that position. So it's like a new Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
Russia, America, now China and America and other players are coming up. That's just politics. It's just history. That's just stuff that happens. The critical thing here is to understand how we're kept down individually and as a people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how we've been kept down, and this is through failure of education. There's no education to speak of. I mean, look, there's some really great teachers. Don't get me wrong, right? But we're all hampered by our diet. We're hampered by the teaching schedules that people have to adhere to, by the accepted, methodology and the accepted content. You can't just start teaching about stuff that you think is true. No, you got to adhere to the rules, right? You can't talk about things like let's call them aliens. I mean, you can't. It's not really something that you would come up with. You wouldn't teach a course in high school about all the confirmed encounters. First, second, third, etc. Fourth, encounters of the fourth kind, and you just don't. You don't see it. It doesn't happen. Or other things, other mysteries that we haven't resolved. And nobody looks at science in the right way. We talk about science as though it's an established fact, right? I mean, some things are, yeah, sure, we know 1 and 1 is 2 in most circumstances, but not always. Oh, that's not true, Mickey. No, that's complex math, and 1 and 1 is not always 2. And this is really where we are at, and physics, quantum mechanics, and all these other wonderful things. Nobody is teaching people right. Nobody is teaching our children in the right way, really, because they can't. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a massive issue, Dave. And look, you've got children in school. I've got children in school.
Yes.
I see what's happening. Look, the teachers are phenomenal. There's some really engaged people. Like they've chosen teaching as their passion, and my head goes off. And we don't appreciate teachers enough. But they're hamstrung as well. They're hamstrung by the curriculum. They're hamstrung by what's accepted, and they're hamstrung by their own education. Right? We're just perpetuating the system here, and only very few of us. Mostly listeners of this radio show or readers of magazines or similar are in the know. And I tell you what, Dave, I went to a Nexus magazine conference in, I want to say, the late 90s, I think it might have been. And I looked around the room, and I think Jim Mars was speaking and a few others. Really interesting conference, right? Really great. So Nexus is doing a phenomenal job. Duncan Rhodes, that is. He's the I think he's the chief editor. Anyway, the point is, I looked around the room, and probably I want to say maybe 100 people thereabouts. It's probably like a really full kind of a lecture talk. And I looked around the room, and I looked at each of the individuals, and I thought to myself, yeah, you want to know stuff, but you know what? If you are what the government has to worry about, the government has nothing to worry about. What I mean by that is, these were some elderly people, some younger people, some alternative people. When I say alternative, like hippie-like, if you will, right? But not people that would be taken seriously by the great mass of people out there, right? They weren't people that we have been taught to respect, like a person in a suit, business, with a tie, or someone in a white coat with a clipboard, or whatever it might be, right? None of these people. These were all I could see they were free thinkers, and not radicals, certainly philosophers, people like that, truth seekers, essentially people that the government, or forget the government, but the elite, the shadowy elite, has nothing to worry about. These were not revolutionaries, is my point, right? These were not people that would stand up on the barricades necessarily, mostly because they're probably too old, but it's really an attitude thing as well. And most truth seekers are inherently peaceful, Dave. They don't have that firebrand of revolution, right? You need a very specific kind of person to ignite that. And that's, I was looking around and going, yeah, look, I can rage against the machine as much as I want, but it will probably crush me if I do that, right? So what does it leave you with? Well, what it leaves you with is Dave and me talking here to you all, trying to share our reality, share our insights, hopefully in an entertaining fashion, so you don't stop listening. But ultimately, each of one of us needs to understand that we have to make the change, and that's why I don't like to just be the spectator on the sidelines, right? And let's say this voter fraud comes through. Yeah, there was huge voter fraud, massive. It doesn't solve our fundamental issues. So Trump becomes president instead of Biden. So what? We still have millions of children starving. We still have slavery. We still have the planet spinning out of control in every possible way you can imagine, and we haven't done anything about it, right? These are all distractions, Dave. They really are.
Oh, look, you don't have. I mean, you don't have to tell me twice. I know, because remember, the thing you talk about, Mackie, is that it doesn't matter what we say and what we do as long as we remain in the box. In the box. That's it. And even though that box is shrinking, because Donald Trump, for instance, on Facebook and Twitter, just basically said something like, I'm going to go out for lunch. And then up, that little tag beneath it saying that President-elect Biden, blah, 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 fact checker, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't say anything. Like, is that now for everything he says? Just simply, how can this be allowed in your system, but in our today, right? So when did the president of the United States, when was it okay to censor what he says? And I think, look, doesn't matter how tyrannical or ranty or opinion based it is. Yeah, there's, he may not be the sharpest tool in the shed. He's a businessman, and he says what he says, and he gets his way, and he does his things, and but he's no bureaucrat, and I'm not sure, But initially, to be honest with you, Mackie, I didn't think he was typing any of these tweets. I thought maybe someone else did it, but then it's like, wow, no, okay, no, it's him.
Yep.
Yeah. So on CNN, for instance, they advertised the new team, the Biden team, as thank heavens, bureaucrats are back in the White House. And And this push against Trump is so large and so emotionally connected with its people that I wonder what, like you said, it's not going to end well for everybody, right? Because if the vote counts are true, then it's pretty much 50-50 nation, as one half is going to be upset and the other one's going to be happy, and I don't know which way that's going to go and what that truly means for the US. I've got to ask.
Yeah, why?
You know, a guy is knelt on his neck by a police officer, and there's riots and destruction of property, and to call for defunding the police and all of this. Well, what's going to happen this time? You know, when Hillary lost, there was, some crazy people. Sorry, I should say some people who were emotionally connected. You could also almost call them brainwashed. And I was talking to one of my friends today, Mackie, about religion. And my friend, he's a fan of the show, by the way. He loves the show. And he listens all the time. And he brought up that conversation, that you can't have a conversation of reality with someone who's religious, because they just start circling the conversation. They're protecting their core. Yeah. Like they're circling the wagons around their core, and it's all belief there, so you've got to believe it. Yeah, okay. Great. I'm not going to argue against you, because there isn't any arguing. It's like that with someone who's been indoctrinated by CNN. Pandering, of course, from the CNN's point of view, pandering to their left audience and only getting more extreme left. And then, the other side, the right-leaning media, is also polarizing itself away from the center.
Yeah.
And they've got to keep doing that, otherwise they lose their audience. But I don't know if you can find any, the media outlets that stay in the middle and remain commentators. Doesn't matter which side's doing it, they'll talk about it, right? They're not going to be hating on one side and loving on the other side. It's not a love fest on either side. But that's what I find. I find most social media and the news media outlets, the mainstream, are quite particular about maintaining their audience and feed them only the stuff they want to hear. My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, but
it's no longer news. You're right.
Confirmation bias, because it's confirmation biais. Because if you listen to a certain station, it will feed you. Yeah, that's right. And that's what these stations do. They feed you. I knew this all along, but clearly, since it's on the radio, on TV, or wherever, then everybody else must be of my opinion as well. So I've got the right opinion. Thank you very much. And never seeking out other opinions, and that's a deliberate thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's insanity. It really is, and a lot of people out there in the world now claim they're the news, and they bring the news and they can do news, and I don't trust any of the corporate outlets. Mm-hmm. Because they all have sorry, that's not true. That is not true. It's not that I don't trust them. I'm actually quite glad that they're out there, because I know what their agenda is.
Yes.
So I know which filter to put on when I look at the news.
Yeah.
Right? That's goodness.
Did you see the live feed, Mackie, where there was a person being interviewed, and he said, I really think we need to talk about George Soros. He's ultimately responsible for this. And then the people at the news desk doing the live cross to this guy, they remain silent, motionless, and it's like they know the camera's on. The little light, on the camera is going to tell them there's cameras on them. And they're looking at it, and they're hearing some stuff in their ears. And after a little bit of a pause, they say, well, we're not going to talk about that. And they try to cut the guy off, and he keeps going. And they just go, oh, we're gonna go to another story.
No, sorry, we got some connection difficulty. What? Losing you.
They were so afraid of talking about it. And it seemed, that his brief to them was entirely different from what he managed to, wiggle into the conversation. It's very funny to watch.
I'm surprised, because but this is how it's called self-censorship. So, is there like this sinister backroom group of people sitting, censoring everything. Well, no, not at least to the extent that we think there is. I mean, there is. Certainly now it's actually AI driven, right? So there's a lot of censorship that's AI driven. Might even be technologies or energies that we don't fully understand at our level. But the point is that a lot of people know not to talk about certain things. They just know. If you want to have a career in archaeology and you find a lighter in Tutankhamun's tomb, then you just put it in your pocket. That's what you do. You put the lighter, electronic lighter I'm talking about, right? You put the electronic lighter in your pocket. That's what you do. It's self-censorship because it doesn't help the narrative of the established story.
Well, they found boomerangs in there.
Yeah, but that's why people go to university, and that's why people become experts. See, we've set the system up. The system is set up perfectly, Dave.
Yes.
We've created a self-perpetuating system of experts. Oh, you got to go to university to be an expert. Only then can you be part of the discussion. But once you're indoctrinated, and there's only very few that aren't, right? Then you will pretty much sing from the same song sheet as everybody else. Bravo, look at him, bravo. Her for that matter. Yes, we can work with that guy, or we can work with that girl. And whereas if you're a rebel, then it doesn't really. We don't want to promote him.
You're just too prickly. That's right.
That's too hard. We don't need hard in our lives. We need easy. Come on.
I've got tenure.
And that's what happens. It's a reality. And people say, "Oh, there's no academic bias." There's societal bias.
Yeah.
There is societal bias. We've always had it. Do you remember when the first African Americans moved into white neighborhoods? They were allowed to. It was a legal thing back in the 60s and 70s, right? Oh, yeah. No, some of my best friends are African Americans, but I don't want to live next to them. Yeah. That's what it is, man.
Yeah, societal Love Thy bias. Neighbor, the English TV show, pointed that out. Yeah. Hey, there's the music. We're going to drop this stream. We're going to establish a brand new one after the break. It's only a very short break, so take the time to donate. We'll see you then.